Jack Wren was just a quiet space mechanic. He didn't have much money and he didn't care about big dreams. All he wanted was peace, quiet, and maybe his own little place to live away from the noise of the galaxy. So when he saw an old space station being auctioned for almost nothing, he clicked buy. No one else bid. The listing said, "Abandoned Royal Station. Condition, unknown. No owner listed in last 300 years. It sounded like junk, but Jack liked broken things. He was good at fixing them. He packed his old ship, loaded some tools, and flew toward the dead moon where the station floated. It looked like a shadow in space, dark, large, and silent. No lights, no signals. Just a shape turning slowly. When Jack docked, the airlock groaned like it hadn't opened in centuries. He stepped inside. It was cold. Too cold. But the gravity was still working. Strange. He moved through the long metal corridors, flashlight in hand. The station was quiet, too quiet. No systems were running. No lights, no sound. Just the sound of his boots on the floor and his breathing in the helmet. But then, he heard something. A soft thud. Then another. Thud. 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 Footsteps. Impossible, Jack whispered. He followed the sound, slowly, carefully, until he reached a sealed vault door. It was massive, covered in strange alien writing. He wiped dust off the panel and noticed something strange, a glowing blue handprint. It pulsed. He hesitated, then placed his hand over it. The door hissed and opened. Inside, the room was huge and warm. The lights flickered on by themselves. 3 tall tubes stood in the center, filled with blue mist, and inside the tubes were women, giant women, 9 feet tall with armor that shimmered like metal and cloth. Their faces were sharp, beautiful, alien. They looked asleep. Or frozen. A screen blinked on. Royal bonding protocol initiated. Welcome, male partner. What? No, I just bought the station, Jack said. The tubes opened with a loud hiss. The first alien woman opened her eyes. They glowed violet. She stepped out slowly, towering over Jack. Her voice was deep yet smooth. You activated the royal protocol. You are now the legal owner of this breeding sanctuary. Jack took a step back. Breeding what? The second woman stepped out. She was slightly taller, with green markings on her skin. Our creators are gone. Our empire is dead. But the old laws remain. The third woman opened her eyes. Her voice was sharper. You will intercourse with us. Jack turned and ran. He didn't care where. He just ran. Behind him, the 3 giant alien princesses didn't chase. They just stood there, watching. He ran into the hallway, locked the doors behind him, and tried to catch his breath. What the hell did I buy? He checked the station's computer. Old files, half-broken code. Some were labeled Royal Breeding Program, Genetic Compatibility, and Male Activation Sequence. His heart pounded. They weren't just women. They were royal princesses. And now, they thought he was their mate. Suddenly, a tray of food slid out of a wall panel. Hot. Fresh. Another panel opened and released warm air into the hallway. They weren't chasing him. They were making him comfortable. Jack stared at the glowing walls, at the soft humming starting deep in the station's heart. He hadn't just bought a station. He had awakened something, ancient something royal, and it had plans for him. Jack didn't stop running. His breath was fast. His hands were shaking. The giant alien princess had just said the words that made his brain freeze. You will intercourse with us. Was that a joke? A warning? A command? Jack didn't wait to find out. He sprinted down the cold metal corridors, turning corners, slamming his shoulder into old pipes, trying to remember the station layout. But the place was too big. Too old. He had no map. Only fear behind him. No footsteps, no chasing, just silence. It was worse. Were they watching him? He found a narrow maintenance tunnel and squeezed into it. Crawling in the dark, surrounded by buzzing wires and thick dust, he whispered to himself, I just wanted a quiet place to live. Jack finally reached a small service room. He slammed the door shut and locked it. Then he collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then softly, a small square in the wall slid open, steam hissed out. A tray slid through. Food. Hot, steaming food. A drink beside it. He stared at it, confused. The plate was full of strange-looking alien meat and vegetables. But it didn't smell bad. In fact, it smelled delicious. Jack didn't eat. He backed into the corner. The wall behind him hummed. Lights slowly flickered on. Another screen appeared. Text scrolled across in glowing letters. You are safe. No harm will come to you. You are not prisoner. You are chosen, Jack whispered. I don't want to be chosen. Suddenly, a soft knock. He froze. The door didn't open, but someone was standing on the other side. Then came a voice, calm, deep, soft. You're afraid. That is normal. It was her, Veltha, the tall one with sad eyes. We don't want to hurt you. We only wish to talk. Jack said nothing. She continued. You have every right to refuse. But we cannot leave the station. We are bound here. You are our first visitor in 300 years. Another pause. Do you know what loneliness is, human? Jack closed his eyes. He knew. He had lived alone for years. She left after a few minutes. No pressure, no orders, just silence. The next day, Jack explored another part of the station carefully. He avoided the royal chambers. Instead, he went to the core systems, his comfort zone. He found control panels mostly offline. Old drone programs, broken surveillance. He reconnected power to a few hallways and found a hidden room filled with ancient memory chips. He plugged one in. The screen showed video logs. Young alien girls, training in combat, laughter, crying, singing, then orders. Genetic line 47, prepare for cryobonding. Activate sanctuary protocol. Await male match. He checked more files. The station wasn't for war, it was for survival. Their race had lost the ability to reproduce. The royal princesses were part of a last program, to create a new line. But the protocol demanded a non-warrior male, a gentle one, a caretaker, a builder. The last line in the file made Jack's blood run cold. Human DNA, compatible. He sat in the chair staring at the screen. Why him? Why now? Suddenly the lights dimmed. Jack turned. Standing quietly in the doorway was one of them. Shira, the one with green markings. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched him. Jack slowly stood. What do you want? Her voice was calm. No anger, no force. You are afraid. But we are not monsters. We never asked to be born in this way. We only follow the last command of our mothers. Jack didn't know what to say. She stepped forward and placed a small object on the floor. It was a power cell. For his toolkit, he had been looking for one. She nodded once, then walked away without a word. Jack picked up the power cell, still warm, still glowing. They weren't just powerful, they were smart, and maybe, just maybe, they were lonely. He stayed in the room that night, locking the door. But before he slept, he found something tucked beside his blanket. A small piece of paper, a drawing. It showed him, sitting on a bench, and 3 tall alien women sitting beside him, smiling. No weapons, no pressure, just together, at the bottom. Written in broken human script, we want talk. Not take, please. Jack stared at the paper long into the night. He had come to fix a broken station. Now he wasn't sure who needed fixing more. The station or him. Jack hadn't slept much. He kept looking at the drawing the alien princess left. It was simple, like something a child would make. But the message was clear. We want talk, not take, please. In the morning, he stepped out of the locked room slowly. The station was quiet again, but it no longer felt like a trap. He walked through the hallways, one hand always near his tool belt. No sign of the princesses. Then he heard it. A low hum, like something being fixed. He followed the sound and stopped at a large energy conduit chamber. There, kneeling by an open panel, was Veltha, the tallest of the 3. She was wearing a long dark robe now, not armor. Her thick silver hair fell down her back like a waterfall. Her giant fingers worked carefully with small wires, almost too small for her size. Jack stayed in the shadows. She didn't look up, but she spoke. This station was our cradle, then our prison. Now it is your home too. Jack stepped forward. Why are you fixing that? She paused. I saw you trying yesterday. You didn't have the tools. I do. Jack looked at her hands. Her strength could crush a wall, but now she was doing delicate work, for him. He walked closer. Sat on the edge of a broken crate. Veltha finally looked at him. Her eyes were soft, not glowing, not dangerous, just sad. You are the first living voice we have heard in 3 centuries. Jack didn't speak. He just watched her, she continued. We were made to be perfect, strong, loyal, but when our creators died, we had no purpose. The station kept us asleep, waiting. Waiting for what? Jack asked. A bondmate. One with compatible DNA. Someone who would choose us, not command us, Jack frowned. You said I had to do it. Veltha shook her head. I was wrong. The old laws say we must offer, but they do not allow force. If we push you, the bond fails. Jack stood up and paced. So I can leave? Yes. Then why didn't I? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Jack already knew. Loneliness. He sat again slowly. Why me? Veltha looked away. Your species is rare. Empathy lives in your bones and... You fixed the docking bay when you arrived. Not many would have tried. A soft silence filled the room. Jack stared at the power cables she was working on. You know your way around this tech? She nodded. I trained here. Before the long sleep. We were made to protect this place. You were soldiers? Veltha smiled faintly. Guardians. Until we became... decorations. She stood up slowly. Her full height was massive, but she didn't feel scary now. She reached into a pouch and pulled out a small orb. She offered it to Jack. He took it. It lit up in his hand. A soft pulsing blue. What is this? Our memory. All of it. He looked up at her. Why give this to me? Because I want you to know who we are, not what we were made for. Before he could reply, the door opened behind them. Shira and Nalaya entered, both calm, both watching, but they didn't speak. Jack looked at all 3. They were warriors, aliens, giants, but also something else, lost, alone, trying. He held up the orb. I'll watch this. Veltha nodded. Thank you. Jack left the room and went back to his cabin. He placed the orb on the table, pressed the top gently. A hologram appeared. Not war, not orders, but a garden. A peaceful alien child running, laughing, planting trees with her sisters. It was Veltha. She was smiling. The memory played on. The 3 sisters learning, growing, training, hugging each other as their world burned in the distance. Jack's eyes were wide. He whispered, You were never monsters. The screen faded to black. Words appeared. If you are reading this, then we are still hoping. Jack sat back, hand over his face. For the first time in years, he felt something deep in his chest. Maybe he wasn't just a visitor here. Maybe he was the answer to someone's long, lonely question. Jack was fixing a cracked coolant pipe when the lights above him suddenly brightened. Not the flickering half-light he was used to. No, this was full power, smooth, white, steady. The whole station had woken up. He stood still, his hands frozen. Then slowly he looked up. The metal around him was glowing softly with power. Panels he'd never seen before slid open on their own. Small service drones floated out like insects from a hive, scanning the station, cleaning dirt, fixing walls. It was alive. System core restored, the AI said in a calm, feminine voice. Jack hadn't heard this voice before. He tapped into the nearest console. User recognized Jack Wren. Bond compatible status confirmed. Crown access. Pending, he frowned. Crown access? Veltha's voice came from behind. That means you are being offered the throne. Jack turned to see her standing at the door, wearing a strange new armor, smooth, glowing, ceremonial. She stepped into the room and looked around, nodding slowly. This place, it remembers. Jack looked back at the console. I didn't do this. I just repaired some coolant lines. No, she said. You accepted our memory. He remembered the orb. She stepped closer. The station only responds to those it trusts. Just then, alarms flashed, not loud, not urgent, but serious. Jack read the screen. External scans detected. Multiple vessels approaching. Unknown identification. Veltha's calm changed. Her jaw tightened. Pirates, Jack's heart jumped. You're sure? Energy signature, spiked plasma cores, mismatched tech. They are coming to take. Sierra entered next, armor half on, eyes cold and sharp. They saw the power turn on. They think this station is still empty. Nalia followed, already preparing weapons. Let them come. Jack blinked. Wait. You're going to fight them? We are the last of the Royal Guard, Sierra said. This station is not theirs. Jack paced the room. There's only 3 of you. Veltha raised an eyebrow. 3 is enough, Jack shook his head. No, you need help. I know the systems. I've worked stations before. The princesses looked at each other. Belta nodded. Then we fight together. They moved quickly. Jack returned to the central hub. He activated the old defense turrets, rusty but functional. He powered the kinetic dampeners in the docking bay, rewired the gravity traps in corridor B9. The princesses moved like soldiers. They remembered every hallway, every blind spot. They loaded weapons stored for centuries. But as the pirate ships drew closer, Jack felt fear growing in his chest. This wasn't fixing things. This was war. The AI whispered again. Warning. Boarding crafts detected. Breach in 2 minutes. The lights dimmed red. The first impact shook the station. The enemy was here. Jack hid near the upper control room, watching cameras. The pirates entered in groups, heavily armed, armored. Loud, but they weren't ready. Nalia came first, dropping from the ceiling like a shadow. She struck with a staff that cracked bone and steel. 2 went down before they even screamed. Veltha held the narrow hall, her blade glowing with plasma. She moved like wind, silent and deadly. Shira blocked the escape routes with drones. Using sharp traps and gas vents, Jack triggered corridor traps, sealing doors behind enemies, trapping them in airlocks, dropping gravity to 0 to make them float helplessly. 1. Pirate, taller than most, reached the core. Chamber. Jack ran there fast. He had no weapon, only a wrench. The pirate raised his blaster. Jack swung the wrench first, right to the neck. The man fell. Groaning, Jack stood over him, shaking. His first real fight, he had won. An hour later, silence. The station was clear. The bodies had been removed. The princesses stood together in the central dome, their faces calm. Jack arrived last. He was covered in oil, sweat, and ash. Nalia gave him a nod. You fought well. Zira offered a small smile. Human, but not weak. Veltha stepped closer. She looked at the wall behind Jack, the royal crest now glowing again. Then she turned to him. You saved us, Jack shrugged. You saved me first. Veltha raised her hand, then slowly placed it on his chest, gentle. No, you gave us a reason to move again. Looked into her eyes. He didn't see a giant or a warrior. He saw someone tired of waiting, someone ready to feel alive again. The station was no longer broken, and neither were they. The quiet didn't last long. Only a day after the pirate attack, more ships appeared on the edge of the system. Not just 2 or 3, dozens. Jack watched the radar blink, red, then redder, then full. 32 hostile vessels approaching, the AI said flatly. Veltha stood still, watching the screen. They sent a signal. Jack swallowed. What kind of signal? No words. Just an image. She pressed a button. The holo display lit up with a pirate skull, blood dripping from its mouth. They know we fought back, Zira said. Now they want revenge, Nalia added. Jack stepped back. We're outnumbered. We can't fight 30 ships, Veltha nodded. We will not, Jack blinked. Wait, what? She turned to him, calm as ever. We are not going to fight them. The station will. Jack's confusion grew. You mean auto defenses? Veltha walked to the throne room. The others followed. Jack ran after them, entering the room he'd only seen once. At the center was a chair, high-backed, ancient, glowing, the royal command throne. The station is more than metal, Veltha said. It was built by the ancients. It has intelligence, emotion, memory. Jack looked at the throne. You're saying it can feel? Nalia nodded. But it needs a voice. It needs a master. Jack stepped back. I'm not a king, Zira spoke. You are not. But the station does not care about titles. It listens to connection. Veltha stepped closer. It chose you. You unlocked it. You accepted our memory. You risked your life for it. Jack looked at the throne, then at the radar. 32 ships. He took a breath and sat down. The metal felt cold at first. Then warm. The lights flickered. The room shook. A deep hum filled the walls. The AI's voice returned, but now it sounded different, deeper, wiser. Commander recognized. Bond confirmed. Hostile threat detected. Defense options unlocked. Panels opened. Giant weapons rose from the station's outer walls. Massive cannons, shield projectors, stealth fields, and strange glowing towers Jack didn't understand. He spoke quietly. Activate shields. Shields up. Outside, the pirate fleet opened fire. Blue flashes slammed against the shield wall. The station shook but didn't fall. Jack gripped the armrest, return fire, non-lethal, firing, and burst. A dozen pirate ships lost power instantly, floating in space like dead fish. The rest scattered, but some charged forward. Breach an outer ring. Enemy boarding parties incoming. Jack stood up. Same plan as before. Veltha shook her head. No, this time, they bring war beasts. Sierra loaded her blades. We meet them head-on. Nalia grabbed Jack's shoulder. Stay near the command deck. You control the station. Let us handle the rest. Jack didn't like it, but he nodded. The battle inside was brutal. The pirates had released monsters. Giant, armored creatures with glowing red eyes and metal jaws. They smashed walls and roared like machines, but the princesses were more than warriors. They were fury. Veltha crashed into the biggest beast with her hammer, shattering bone and armor. Shira danced between claws, her twin blades flashing. Nalia led drones into the fight, guiding fire and trap systems with perfect control. Meanwhile, Jack watched from the command room, triggering doors, dropping gravity, sending shock pulses. One beast got close, too close. It broke into the hallway near him. Jack grabbed a laser torch, small, weak, but it was all he had. He stood his ground. The beast roared. Jack didn't flinch. Then a blast of plasma hit it from behind. Veltha. She stepped in, panting, bleeding, but still standing. She looked down at Jack. You didn't run. I'm done running. They stood side by side. Then she said something that made him freeze. You are not just our commander now. You are our partner. The battle lasted hours, but in the end, the pirates retreated. The beasts were dead, and the station stood tall, scars on its walls, smoke in the air, but alive. Jack walked through the halls, seeing bodies, broken machines, but also strength. He reached the garden room. The plants were still growing. Still green. Sierra and Nalia were tending the broken trees, quiet, focused. Veltha stood at the center. Eyes closed, head raised, she turned to Jack and smiled, not as a soldier, not as a princess, but as someone who felt safe again. She walked over and placed her hand on his chest. You stood with us in war, now let us stand with you in life. The station was quiet. Too quiet. Jack walked down the long hallway alone. The battle was over. The pirates were gone, but something still felt heavy in the air, like the whole station was holding its breath. The walls were clean now, the lights soft. The power hummed deep and steady, but something had changed. When Jack reached the command deck, the three princesses were already waiting for him. Veltha stood in the center. Her long silver hair was tied back. She wore new armor, ceremonial, glowing with blue light and ancient symbols. Zira and Nalia stood beside her, calm but serious. They weren't holding weapons, they weren't smiling. Veltha looked at Jack with eyes full of emotion. It is time. Jack raised an eyebrow. Time for what? Zira stepped forward. The bonding. Jack took a step back. Wait, you mean like marriage? Nalia nodded. Closer than marriage. This is how our kind unite with another. Jack shook his head. I didn't agree to anything. Veltha spoke gently. You are free to leave, always. But we are not asking out of duty, Zira added. We ask from the heart. Jack looked around the room. The princesses were tall, strong, royal, but in this moment they looked vulnerable. Veltha stepped closer, then knelt on one knee before him. You saved us. You fought with us. You gave us hope, and now we ask you to complete the circle. Jack's voice was low. What happens if I say yes? Nalia answered softly. The station accepts your command fully. You become more than a guest. You become part of us. And if I say no, Veltha didn't flinch. Then we thank you. And you are free. Jack looked at his hands. Dirty. Tired. Human. Then he looked at theirs. Scarred. Glowing. Strong. He had fixed the station. But they had fixed him too. He thought of Earth. How no one cared who he was. How no one waited for him. How even his tools felt cold, but here, he was seen, he was needed, he was wanted. Jack stepped forward and said, Show me how it works. They led him to the heart of the station, a hidden room deep in the core. It had no doors, only a circular archway that lit up as they approached. Inside, it was warm, not hot. warm like sunlight. The walls pulsed with soft light, like a heartbeat. In the center was a pool of clear, glowing liquid. It shimmered like stardust, Veltha spoke. This is the link pool. It holds the station's memory, and ours. If you step in, Zira said, your body and mind will be touched by the bond. No pain, Nalia added, only truth. Jack took off his boots, took a deep breath, and stepped into the pool. At first, nothing happened. Then the light grew brighter, and Jack gasped. He saw visions, memories not his own. Veltha as a child, crying in a metal nursery, Shira training with plasma blades, falling again and again, Nalia sitting alone in a garden, drawing pictures of a world she had never seen, and then Jack saw himself not alone, not broken, but standing beside them, a part of something, a family. The pool glowed, brighter. He felt warmth enter his chest, then his back, then his head, and then silence. Jack opened his eyes. He was no longer in the pool. He was standing, but he wasn't. Alone, Veltha was beside him, her hand in his. Shira held his other hand. Nalia stood behind him, her palm over his heart. They were glowing, and so was he. It is done, Veltha whispered. We are linked, Shira said. Forever, Nalia added. Jack didn't speak. He didn't have to. He felt it, in his mind, in his chest. A connection, like invisible threads tying them together. Emotions, thoughts, calm, peace. Later, they sat in the garden chamber. The trees bloomed again. The air smelled like sweet spice. Veltha rested her head on Jack's shoulder. Shira lay beside him, her breathing soft. Nalia was already asleep, curled like a cat. Jack looked up at the stars through the glass dome. He smiled, not because he owned the station, not because he had bonded with 3 alien princesses, but because for the first time in his life, he belonged. Weeks passed. The galaxy had gone quiet again. No more pirates, no more threats, just stars, silence, and peace. The station, once broken and dark, now glowed with life. Gardens filled its halls. Machines hummed in perfect rhythm. The royal banners of a lost empire now flew again, not for war but for healing. At the center of it all stood Jack Wren, not in armor, not on a throne, but in work clothes covered in dust and oil, fixing a broken pump near the hydroponic bay. That's who he was. That's who he had always been. A fixer. Veltha appeared beside him, silent as always. Her steps were heavy but soft. She didn't speak at first. She simply knelt next to him, handing him a wrench without being asked. Jack smiled. You always know what I need. Yes, she said quietly. We feel it now. Their bond was strong. He could feel her emotions like a soft warmth inside his chest. Never loud, never forced. Shira soon joined them, her blade sheathed across her back. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smirking. A king working like a mechanic. Strange sight, Jack shrugged. I was never meant for thrones. Nalia stepped into the room last, holding a small data pad. She didn't smile right away. Her face was serious, focused. Jack, she said slowly. We need to talk. He stood. What is it? Nalia handed him the pad. He read it, then read it again, and again. His heart froze. These numbers, these are real? She nodded. Confirmed 3 times. Veltha stepped closer, placing her hand gently on his back. Shira's smirk faded into something quiet. Respectful. Jack looked at the screen one last time. Pregnant, he whispered. Nalia nodded. All 3 of us. Jack dropped into the chair behind him, stunned. His voice was soft. I didn't think it was possible. Neither did we, Veltha whispered. The bond, Zira said. It changed us. It changed everything. Jack stared at the floor. 3 alien princesses. 3 new lives inside them. His children, half human, half something else. He didn't know whether to cry, laugh, or faint. He did none of those. He stood and nodded. Then we have work to do. In the following days, the station changed again. A new chamber was built. Soft walls, low lights, warm air. It would be their nursery. Jack worked day and night, assisted by drones, by AI, and sometimes by tiny robot arms he programmed himself. Veltha painted stars on the walls. Zira installed protective fields. Nalya designed a cradle shaped like a moon. They didn't do it because they had to. They did it because they wanted to. Because this wasn't duty anymore. This was family. Soon, word spread across the stars. Whispers, tales, rumors. A human repaired the lost royal station. He bonded with the 3 giant princesses. He brought life back to the dead bloodline. Ships began arriving, small ones first. Diplomats, curious scientists, historians, then bigger ones. Traders, peaceful explorers, those who wanted to learn. Jack didn't stop them, but he made one rule. No harm, no hunger, no hate. Or you leave, and people listened. Because the station wasn't just a place anymore, it was a home, a place where broken things were fixed, a place where giants smiled and where a lonely human became something more. One day, Jack stood by the garden dome, watching the stars. Veltha walked beside him, her steps slower now. Her hand rested on her growing belly. She looked at him. Do you miss Earth? Jack thought for a moment. No. Do you miss being alone? He laughed. Never. She leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered something he would never forget. You saved a station. You saved us. But most of all, you saved yourself. Jack looked at the stars, then at the home he had built. And he smiled. Because for the first time in forever, he wasn't just Jack Wren, space mechanic, he was father, he was partner, he was the human king.